Torta di Rose. This classic Italian dessert from Mantova uses a brioche dough and is stuffed with a delicious butter and sugar mix. It looks so impressive when served, and it's really easy to make, so let me show you how. To a large mixing bowl, add 4 cups, 500 grams of plain or all-purpose flour. To this, add half a cup, 100 grams of granulated white sugar. Then add in 4 grams, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 11 grams, 3 teaspoons of yeast. I've used instant yeast for this recipe, but you can use active dry or fresh yeast. If you're using fresh, you'll have to work out the ratios. But if you're using active dry, you want to add it to your warm liquid and let it bloom for about 5 minutes before adding into your flour mixture. We're going to give this a little stir. To the flour mix, add 244 milliliters, just over 1 cup of lukewarm whole milk, and 2 large eggs at room temperature. When making bread, it's important that your ingredients are at the same temperature. When it comes to the liquid, slightly above room temperature is best, so I've warmed my milk for about 20 to 30 seconds in my microwave. And just start mixing that together. You can do this in your stand mixer with the paddle attachment, but I'm going to start it by hand, and then I'm going to let the mixer do the hard work of kneading. Once your dough has for the most part come together, you can knead it by hand for about 10 minutes or pop it onto your stand mixer with your dough hook and let it knead there for about 5. If you have any bits stuck to the side of your bowl, just give it a little helping hand with a spatula. It's always good to check and gauge the consistency of your dough. We're trying to get that window pane. So that's when you pull the dough up and you can see through it. And as you can see here, it's still coming apart and it's very sticky. So we're not there yet. So keep kneading. It's looking really smooth. Let's check for that window pane. We can see the light through the dough with no cracking. That's exactly what we're looking for. Now it's time to enrich our dough with a little bit of butter. We're adding in 75 grams, 1/3 a cup of softened butter, and I'm going to do it in pieces. Otherwise, you might just have one large lump of butter in the middle of your dough. I'm just going to give the bowl a little scrape to make sure all of that butter gets incorporated. When all of the butter has been incorporated and your dough looks lovely and smooth, it's time for the first proof. You'll want to let this prove for the first time for at least 1 to 2 hours or until the dough has doubled in size. Enriched dough can take a little bit longer to prove because of all of the delicious fats in there. If you find your dough isn't rising fast enough, pop it in a warm, draft-free area of your home. Once it's at least doubled in size, cover it back up and pop it in the refrigerator overnight. This is a cold fermentation process. It not only enhances the flavor of the dough, but it also strengthens the gluten. Grease a 9-inch springform pan with butter. You don't want your torta to stick. Make sure the entire bottom and up the sides is completely covered in butter. Let's prepare the filling. Start by adding just over 5 tablespoons, 75 grams of butter to a bowl. You want your butter to be really soft. Then add in 3/4 cups, 150 grams of granulated sugar. To this, you're going to add your flavoring. It's optional, but I like to add in a teaspoon, 4 grams of vanilla extract. You could add in any flavor you like, orange or even a little bit of rose water to tie in with the theme. Now mix it together until you have a smooth paste. Now set that aside while you roll out your dough. Lightly flour your work surface, just enough so that your dough isn't going to stick. And then turn your dough out onto the prepared area. Add a light dusting of flour on the top, and then start to press your dough down. It should be very firm at this point because I've just taken it out of the fridge. And the reason we let it sit in the fridge overnight is because it not only adds to the structure and the gluten, but it also adds to the flavor of the dough. Whenever I'm rolling dough, I like to give it a little shift between every few rolls to make sure it's not sticking to my surface. And for this dough, we're looking for a rectangle, so we want it to be about half as wide as it is long, about 1/2 centimeter, 0.2 inches thick. And try to keep it in a nice rectangular shape. That will give us the perfect shape for our roses. And if you find you get a little couple sticky bits, just add a tiny bit more flour. Now you want your dough to be about 50 centimeters long by 25 deep. But I'm going to go one step further and I'm going to fold this to create a little bit of extra texture in the dough. So dust off any extra flour. Keep those edges as nice and square as possible, and then fold it into thirds. Now give that a gentle press down, and we're going to roll it again. And try to make sure your edges are also rolled so that you don't have any thick lumps. The longer you go in width, the more spiral you'll have in your rose, so feel free to make it a little bit thinner if you want. I'm just going to square up my edges and then we'll be ready to spread that filling. Spread your filling evenly over the dough. I like to sort of just dot it around and then spread it out. You can use an offset spatula or the back of a spoon. This doesn't have to be fancy. And try and get it right to the edges, at least the shorter edges. You'll want to leave a tiny little lip on the closest edge to you. For the edge that I didn't add any filling to, I'm going to just touch with some damp fingers so that it gets nice and sticky, and when I roll up the roses, they stick together nicely. So based on my measurements, I'm going to cut each rose into just over 7 centimeters. Now, if your piece is larger or smaller, we're looking for 7 pieces in total. So divide your entire length into 7, and that's the length that you'll need for each roll. You can continue using a knife, but I find the easiest tool for this job is a pizza cutter. And then as evenly as possible, cut each slice. I find this method easier than rolling up the whole log and slicing them because then you get nice crisp edges. Now from the edge that we didn't wet, we're going to roll them up. That sticky end, I just like to press it down with my fingers so that everything holds together nicely. And if you've got a little bit like this, just tuck it in the bottom. Give your rose a little tap on the bottom so it's nice and flat, and place it into your prepared pan. Traditionally, you'll find 7 roses in each pan, but if you've got some extra dough or you want to make smaller roses, that's perfectly fine. Roll your dough out a little bit thinner and cut yourself a few extra pieces. So in the end, you want 6 roses on the outside and 1 in the center. Now we're going to cover this up and let it prove for another 60 to 90 minutes until it starts to fill the pan. Once they're nice and puffed up, we're going to brush the top with an egg and milk mixture. Mix together 1 egg yolk with 20 grams, about 1.5 tablespoons of whole milk. You could even use cream if you wanted. Now give that a little whisk together. And you can gently adjust your rolls so they're standing a little more upright, but it's going to look a little rustic anyway when they come out of the oven, so don't worry too much about it. Now brush the tops with that mixture. If you didn't want to use another egg yolk, you could just brush the top with milk and cream and it will still be really lovely and beautiful. The egg yolk just adds a little extra gloss. Now into the oven. Preheat your oven to 175 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You'll want to bake your torta for 10 minutes at this temperature. Once 10 minutes has transpired, turn down the heat to 160 degrees Celsius or 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Then let this cook for another 20 to 30 minutes until it's beautifully golden brown and cooked all the way through. Doesn't it look beautiful? It's sure to impress any guest. While it's still hot, run a knife around the edge of the pan so that nothing sticks. And then once it cools slightly, run it around again because once that sugar starts to cool, it will be so sticky, like caramel. To help release the cake from the bottom of the pan, I'm going to run my knife underneath it. You could also line your pan with a piece of parchment. Add a gentle dusting of icing sugar on the top. To add an extra sense of occasion, I like to tie a ribbon around the cake. It's such a lovely way to present it. This is best eaten when slightly warm and that sugary buttery mixture is still a little bit gooey and caramelly, but you can eat it a few days after as long as it's been stored in an airtight container. If you're looking for another impressive Italian dessert, you have to try my sbriciolata. Mine is made with blackberries, but you can sub out any seasonal fruit. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button down below, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.